right, Mayor Brownrigg, you're good to go.
Perfect. Well, welcome everybody to the February 21st meeting of the Burlingame City Council. Thank you for joining us tonight. The first matter is call to order, which we've just done. And so we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. And I've asked our newest council member, Peter Stevenson, to lead us in the pledge.
Excellent. Everyone, please stand. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and liberty for all.
Thank you, Peter. I have to say, I have had a rocky internet so far. I hope I can maintain a decent connection, but thank you for that. That takes us to roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Present.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Present.
Councilmember Beach,
Present.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Here.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Here. All five accounted for. We did have a closed session. Mr. City Attorney, was there any action to report out?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, there was no reportable action tonight.
Thank you for that.
You're currently muted.
Sorry, it's a little bit of stray sound. So that takes us to upcoming events. And I am going to start actually not so much with an upcoming event, but a reminder that we are in the middle of Black History Month. And I'm indebted to our friends in the library for sharing a story that I'll quickly share with everybody, because Black History Month is not as much about remembering the appalling incidents of racism and slavery as much as it is to celebrate the accomplishments of African Americans in the history of the United States. And so with that in mind, I'm going to try to paraphrase a wonderful story that was developed by one of our library staff. And she or he, I'm not sure, noted that African American Sadie Peterson Delaney, who received her library training in New York Public Library School from 1920 to 21, continued to work at the New York Public Library and spent her lifetime increasing the number of programs available for children, especially who were juvenile delinquent, who were blind or born overseas. She worked hard to explain the value of the library to the children and was integral in developing the African American collection at the New York Public Library. Interestingly, she also then went on to develop a field called bibliotherapy, which matches appropriate books and poetry and reading with people based on their context and what they're in a hospital for healing purposes. And this field of bibliotherapy became so well respected that librarians from around the world would come and watch her as she went through her therapy curriculum development, which she was by that time doing in the Veterans Administration in the VA for soldiers. She also taught blind patients how to read Braille and created a special department for the blind. So I just thought I'd share that. I thought that was a very interesting snapshot, and thank you to our library staff for putting that together. In terms of upcoming events at the library, there is a Black History Month treasure hunt for kids. That's on through the end of the month. There is Kids Night Out and hosted by our rec center. That's on March 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m. That's again really about Parents Night Out, just to be clear. So our folks will take care of your little folks. The rec center is hosting a royal ball on March 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. For more details, go to our rec center to find out all about what the princes and princesses can do at the ball. And then finally, our rec center wanted to remind us that Mills Canyon in the lower half is closed due to landslides. I'm going to use that perhaps unfairly to briefly ask our Park and Rec director if there's a timetable for reopening that, because I've been asked by a lot of people. And secondarily, is there a way for volunteers to help?
Right now, we don't know what we need. We were waiting for the land to dry out to be able to go down and assess the canyon as a whole for other areas that have drainage and the lower area and see the best way to reroute the path. We do have we have had in the past volunteers help with some of the work. And if there is an opportunity for that, we of course will be following up when the due time comes, but it's closed for the foreseeable future until we can get someone out there to do that assessment.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. If people want to volunteer, is there a list that they can sign up for or any way that they can make note of their willingness to help?
Yeah, I think they can go ahead and email or call the Parks admin at 650-558-7330, I believe, or her email is vflores@burlingame.org. And we can get them on a list. And then I also, just while I'm talking, we sent out a public announcement through our social media today, and we did post it in quite a few of our parks with large stature trees. During this wind event, we have asked people to stay out of those parks until the winds recede for their safety, as well as their family and their sweet little puppies that they may be out there walking. There's quite a big mess that we're going to need to clean up. We're not the only ones. And then also, while I have the floor here, I don't know if you saw the thank you we wanted to announce about our senior dance that we just had.
I have it right. I have it right in front of me. So let me turn briefly. Although this section is upcoming events, there are two retrospectives that we wanted to issue. So one on February 13th on Monday, the community center hosted 105 seniors and celebrate balance dance at the rec center, at the community center. And they enjoyed an afternoon of food, music, and dancing. 15 of our youth advisory committee members volunteered helping to decorate, serve food, and dance. A wonderful time was had by all, and special thanks to Benihana's for donating a variety of dishes and to the Truesdale for donating the desserts. So that is one thank you. And then just before I turn it over to Vice Mayor Colson, a second thank you is to our staff who on very short notice made the rec center available for the Kurdish community and Turkish community to get together over the weekend and both grieve the losses from the earthquake and also to come together and share food and ways to support the family and people back in Turkey and Kurdistan and Syria. And that was also a wonderful event, much appreciated by the community, especially because only 48 hours beforehand, they weren't sure where they could do it. So real kudos to our staff. And that's what a great community center is for. So with that, Vice Mayor Colson, did you want to say something?
I'm good. I just was noting how generous Benihana was to the seniors and how exciting that was for them. And Jocelyn in particular, the manager of that restaurant, and the work she did to really up those numbers and get that going. So thanks so much for mentioning.
Excellent. Excellent. Much appreciated. The only other sort of longer term budget item or longer term upcoming event is on March 15th. We will be having our mid-year budget review. So by all means, come along and join us for that. Does any colleague or any other member of staff have any event they'd like to bring to the attention of the public? All right, seeing none, then we'll continue to move on. And that takes us to presentations. And we have 2 presentations tonight. Madam City Clerk, do we know, is Dr. Owens in the audience or not yet?
I see that the NAACP is here. So and they raise their hand, so I think they're good to go. So let me bring them in as a presenter.
Are we good? I can't tell. Yeah, there we are. Good evening, Dr. Owens.
Good evening. How are you?
Oh, good. The connection is made.
Yes.
We're wonderful. Let me briefly introduce you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Dr. Owens is the president of the NAACP San Mateo chapter. She also happens to be the chief technology officer in the San Mateo County Department of Education. So she is both a colleague and a leader in our community, a longtime civil rights activist. And we invited Dr. Owens to come and share with us the work of the NAACP here in San Mateo County, which I will remind everybody, as Dr. Owens probably will, was founded in 1909 by a collection of both white and Black leaders at the time. It's always been NAACP has been open to everybody who believes in ending racism and hate. So over to you, Dr. Owens.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Mayor. Good evening to you all. I'm just going to spend a few minutes. I'll look at the clock as a preacher. I have to make sure that I don't go as long as I've been known to go. So I'm taking a look at the clock, keeping an eye on it. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for inviting me. And I think our vice president, I don't know if she's going to be here tonight, but just wanted to spend a little time talking to you about the NAACP. A lot of people don't know or didn't know that we had a branch in San Mateo County. It's a small branch, under 200 people, but it's been a branch that's been around for quite a long time. The San Mateo branch has been was chartered in February of 1926. So we're 97 years old, been around a long time. And as Mayor has alluded to, or stated, he didn't allude to, he stated, the first NAACP organization was started in 1909 by both white and Black civil rights activists in response to ongoing violence against African Americans at that time. The first president of the NAACP was an attorney named Moorfield Story, who was a white person, a white man. And so there's been quite a long history of the NAACP and others, white and others from other ethnicities working together. So it's not just a Black organization against primarily racial discrimination, but particularly in San Mateo County, we fight against all discrimination. So we pride ourselves on that. We pride ourselves on the fact that we are, at least in the state of California, the most diverse NAACP branch. We have a number of people who are on our executive committee, a 13-member committee, who are not African American. And I'm very proud of that because, again, the issues that we face in terms of discrimination in our county and in this nation are not a Black problem. It is an all of us problem. So I'm very proud of the fact that we work together in San Mateo County on these issues. And it's not just relegated to, Black people. You go fix it. As you know, with regards to the national NAACP office, the NAACP was very instrumental in 1954 in the Brown versus Board of Education ruling. And the NAACP, the way it works, we primarily work through legislation and judicial means. I mean, we will go out and we'll march and we'll do all of that, but our primary focus is to work through the system and to educate. We have a big emphasis on educating the public about the issues that are pertinent to today. And we do that in San Mateo County. Again, we're considered a fairly small branch, but we do a lot. A lot of our work is behind the scenes. Again, anybody can join. It's $30 a year. And National has been very, very adamant about keeping the rates at that level so that anyone can join. So I would invite any of you, if you would like to join with us, you can go to our website, which is naacpsanmateo.org. And I'll put that, I don't have a chat, but I'll send it out, you can put it in the minutes or something, but it's naacpsanmateo.org and join with us. We would love to have you all join with us. There is strength in numbers, and the more people that we have working with us, the better we can, or more effective we can be. The mission of the NAACP, and I'll read it directly to you, and this is the mission of all of our branches, is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons and to eliminate race-based discrimination. So again, we're fighting for the rights of everybody, whether it's race-based, gender-based, gender identity-based, religious-based, whatever it is. We believe in equality across the board, and we will fight for that in whatever way, shape, and form we can. The structure of the NAACP is basically the local branches, and there are about 2,200 of us throughout the nation, and we all report to our respective states. Here on the West Coast, our branch reports to the California-Hawaii Conference, and then each of those respective states or groupings of states report to the national NAACP. In San Mateo County, we have a number of committees. We're struggling a little bit with the education committee, but we have education committee, a communication committee, housing, health, political action, and legal redress. And that's how our work gets done. What we encourage our members to do is, once you join, is to join one of those committees, and that's where the work is done. For example, health committee. Our president, or chair, I should say, of that health committee worked very closely with BACHAC during the pandemic to help get information out to underrepresented people in San Mateo County about PPE, about vaccination for those that chose to be vaccinated, about healthcare. Did a lot of work to try to get information out, where clinics were for those that could not get help or get vaccinated or whatever through maybe they didn't have medical insurance. So did a lot of work there. We've traditionally done a lot of work in the political action realm with regard to education. We have at times partnered with the League of Women Voters and, getting information out about the various things that we are being asked to vote on. Now, the NAACP as a 501c4, we cannot endorse politicians, and we don't. Even though sometimes I think, we have our favorites, but we do not actively do that. That's illegal. So, but we do work very, very hard to make sure we get information out. And when we do have people come, and we have had that particularly with our local politicians, we have them come to our general membership meetings. We have one a month, and for the last 3 years, they've been on Zoom. And eventually we'll get back to having in person, but we make sure that when we do that all of the candidates have an equal opportunity to speak to the membership, and not just one person or the other. So education, we not only work in the realm of education in terms of ensuring that when there are issues that affect our students, one of them having to do, for example, with digital equity. And that was something we saw very much an issue with during COVID. But we've also given tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships out to students of all races, all backgrounds. As a matter of fact, most of the students in recent years that have received scholarships from the NAACP have not been African American. But if they're dedicated to fighting against discrimination in our communities, we usually have them write an essay, and we base who we award based on what they're saying in the essay and the work that they've done in their schools and communities. So we don't care what color they are. If they're dedicated to that cause, then we're more than happy to help them. Some of the things we've done in just primarily during my time as president. I've been president since late 2018. We have worked in terms of educating the public about Juneteenth once it became a national holiday. And we continue to do so. So if City of Burlingame is doing anything to recognize that day, let me know. We'd love to work with you on that. We work very closely with ADL and a lot of the work against anti-Semitism. We've seen a big tick of anti-Semitism in recent times, recent years, and particularly just lately when we had some changes with Twitter and some of the things that they have changed in terms of allowing certain types of speech on the platform. And we've seen a lot of anti-Semitism in that platform. So we work with ADL against that. Housing discrimination, very much in some cases maybe unintentional, but very, very much an issue in San Mateo County. And I know I could spend like a whole 30 minutes just talking about that. I won't, but that's one of the things that we are going to be really focusing on in the coming couple of years, and as well as in particular looking at some of the issues facing the farm workers on the coast. Something we have known about, and we actually had a number of presentations about that before the tragedy in Half Moon Bay, but we're stepping up our focus and our work in that arena. And as a matter of fact, on our next week, on the 28th, we will be having our general membership meeting, and we have a speaker coming and talking about that. So I can send you that information, Zoom link. Love to have you join if you have the opportunity. Over the history of the NAACP San Mateo, we've worked to reduce the number of students at juvenile hall and better relationships with our law enforcement community. We have a great relationship with the city of the police, the city of San Mateo. Love to try to establish that with we have maybe we're looking forward to better relations with the sheriff's department. We've worked very hard to try to get justice for Chinedu Okobi, the young man that was tased to death in Millbrae. And we've been very disappointed with the fact that there were it was almost $1 million spent to buy new tasers in San Mateo County since his death. So we're working on issues around that and to make sure that Mr. Okobi's death is not in vain. Worked with some folks with the Redwood City Fire Department. There was some real serious problems with racial discrimination and taunting going on there. Things have gotten better, but you're also working with them in terms of some of their hiring practices, been very active with that. And so, again, one of the things, I guess, in terms of takeaways that I just want to leave you all with is that even in progressive San Mateo County, the racism, discrimination in general is very existent. I have received, it's very interesting because even though I try to keep my my secular persona separate from my NAACP persona, when I have made public statements about certain things, I have received email at my job basically saying, we know where you are, and you need to shut up, and kind of veiled threats. I have been called the N-word in 2019 out in front of the Board of Supervisors chambers after offering some testimony there. So people don't believe that in San Mateo County that these things happen, but believe me, they do. So we want to continue to work with our various municipalities to further information about what we do, to invite you to work with us. We are just committed. There's so many fronts that we are working on, and we just want you to know that we're here. And if there are any initiatives you're working on, we stand ready to assist you. As we may at times come to you and ask for you to assist us if we're working on something in your municipality. Before I close, and I'll leave some time if you have any questions or whatever, I did want to make 2 plugs, if I would. And one of them is the Dominique Hoskins Black History Museum that is, open right now in Redwood City at 880 Jefferson Avenue, every day except Monday from 12 to 5, and they'll be closing down next week on the 28th. But the reason why I raised that is that this is Black History Month, and this is a jewel in this county of San Mateo. Carolyn Hoskins she goes around, and various times during the year, she will have her exhibit set up. And so if we really want to look at Black history, both nationally and in San Mateo County, this is a tremendous place to get that information. And one of the things I was a little dismayed about is in talking to Ms. Hoskins, she was telling me about how she's had visits from schools and municipalities throughout the Bay Area, but not a whole lot of participation, almost none from San Mateo County. So if you get a chance between now and next week, please, encourage your schools, get a little field trip together for yourselves, pop over there at lunchtime and take a look at that exhibit. It's powerful, and I guarantee you'll learn something. I learned something, and I don't know every time I go. So I, would love for you to take advantage of that exhibit. And then shameless plug, but NAACP San Mateo is having a gala on March the 12th at the Crown Plaza in Foster City. And this is our fundraiser. This is pretty much our only fundraiser, our main fundraiser. This is how we support ourselves, pay our bills, and get out and do things like give scholarships and do educational events and that sort of thing. So if you have an opportunity, it's a Sunday from 4 to 7 at the Crown Plaza. You can go to our website, naacpsanmateo.org, and get information about that. And we would love to have you there. I know City of San Mateo bought a table. If there's a way for, some of you to come out and, join with us, and we celebrate what's going on in San Mateo County and talk about our initiatives for the upcoming year. So we'd love to have you come. So I would just like to stop. I did the preacher 15 minutes there, and I'll open the floor up if there are any questions or comments that you had before you go on with the rest of your evening.
Thanks so much, Pastor Owens. Colleagues, any questions or comments for Pastor Owens? Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. Well, Pastor Owens, I just want to thank you very much. I'm very involved in a lot of historical work here in San Mateo County, and I'm hoping maybe I can talk to you offline about more collaboration around that, both at Filoli and the San Mateo County History Museum. I don't think we do a good enough job, and we recognize that in our traditionally non-diverse institutions that talk about history. So hopefully we can hook up offline, you and I, and maybe that'd be great. I'd love to chat with you.
Mayor has my email, so
thank you. Just hook us up, Mayor.
I will.
And I really appreciate, he's been such a welcoming. We met at an event a few months ago, or whatever, and I really appreciate the interaction, and thank you so much.
I'm so glad you made time to come here this evening, Pastor Owens.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right.
I really appreciate it. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your meeting. Be blessed.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night. Take care.
Well, that's a feel-good presentation, notwithstanding the importance of the work underneath it and sometimes the horror of it. That takes us to our next presentation, which is our annual sustainability report. And
Mayor Brownrigg, that's actually not till staff reports. So
Sorry?
that's under staff reports. So we still
I
have
beg your pardon, I'm looking at an old agenda. I beg your pardon. So never mind. Forget I said that. I apologize. I'm looking at the thing that I went over a few days ago, and obviously we changed that. I apologize. So that takes us to, unless there's something that was added, right? There wasn't. No. So that takes us to public comments. This is the time for any member of the public to share with us his or her views on any item that is not on the agenda, and we will listen carefully. We can't react because it's not on the agenda, but we would love to have your input. So with that, Madam City Clerk, are there any comments, either written or members of the audience?
I do have one email. Okay. It's from James. He says, "Hi, I've been a resident in Burlingame for over 50 years. All the time I think of this when I'm driving about. My concern is 1, traffic, 2, parking, 3, sewage, 4, water, 5, pollution, 6, population, 7, destroying the park, 8, reserving history, 9, turning this community into a city, 10, Burlingame is not Burlingame anymore. All of what made this town great is gone. The city of trees, you know how it got that nickname. Well, so you can't say that anymore. My point is, for what? Money? I'm thinking what is going through their minds. We don't care about the future of our children. We don't care about the environment. All we care about is money. It's not just here, it's the world. It's a shame that greed is our doom. Once again, we're still in a drought. How can we survive when you're bringing in 1,000 more people here in the small town, removing parking spaces for businesses, once a gas station, now a huge apartment building, cramming mass people in a small lot? It's not good, and you don't you don't care. It's all about the money. Thank you if you took the time to read this." And I don't see any hands raised, so I think we're good on public comment.
All right. Thank you very much for that. And so that takes us to the consent calendar. Is there anybody who'd like to pull an item off of the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'd welcome. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak to something, Megan?
Yes, I have an email from Benito to pull item 8D, which I believe is the California.
8B. Okay, then I'd welcome a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
And I'll second.
And I apologize, I'm having bad internet, but I think the motion was by Councilmember Ortiz and seconded by Councilmember Beach. Did I get that right? Yes, okay,
Yes.
good. So we have motion to approve the consent calendar. Roll call.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Approve.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes. And so that motion passes 5-0. And the item that was asked to be pulled in 8B in our contract.
It's D as in
What?
dog.
Gosh darn it, I need to, sorry. Hopefully, well, yeah, I'll pull up in the meantime. Anyway, that item, let's talk about that item, and I'll pull up the agenda electronically so I don't keep screwing up.
So
Sure.
this is for Syed.
Yeah, maybe we open it up to public comment first, since it was pulled by a member of the public.
Do you want to, yeah, go ahead and read it.
Yeah, so Manito wrote in, thank you for calendaring this item. It is unfortunate that the last time these plans were in the public view was at council September 2021. Not last year, but over 17 months ago. No one who lives in Burlingame has seen these plans, not Traffic Safety Parking Commission, not the businesses whose parking will be removed, nor the users for whose benefit this is intended. It's hard to understand why this always happens. Project goes dark for several months and then suddenly it shows up for council to award the contract. I was able to download the plans, and in looking at them, I'm sorry to say that this plan is not buildable. There are several fatal flaws and code violations. I'll try to name a few. One, while all the lane lines are being shifted to make room for bike lanes, the overhead signal heads no longer line up with the lane they're supposed to control. At California and Broadway, the signal for left turning drivers is all the way to the right and over the wrong lane. You can imagine the confusion and safety issue there. Two, the northbound lanes on California has an awkward merge today from 2 lanes to 1 coming across the intersection of Broadway. This project is actually making that worse by making the transition even more abrupt. The lanes are now aimed to end up towards Audi back parking lot fence. 3, when the Samtrans 292 bus stops in front of the First Republic Bank, it will be blocking the bike lane and the one and only remaining southbound traffic lane. That means traffic will come to a standstill and block the intersection of Broadway, spilling back over the tracks while the bus is stopped. 4, right turns from the side street are now virtually impossible as drivers have only 1 lane to turn into, and there's no visibility to see oncoming traffic. In fact, there's a new sidewalk bulb out at Mahila that makes it literally impossible to turn right. 5, flashing beacons are planned to be installed at Palm right by the fire station, but cities are not allowed to put in a flashing beacon at the same location as a traffic signal. That is confusing and a liability issue. The list is over 20. We're probably going to need another $500,000 to undo this when the people start complaining in October. In the end, your yes vote is essentially saying I affirm beyond a reasonable doubt that this is the best possible design, and especially with El Camino Real shutting down for construction essentially in 2024. We need the street to work as best as it can, as safe as it can with bike lanes. This isn't it. And I don't see any other hands raised for public comment on this item.
And is the author of those comments in the audience, can you tell? Or we don't know?
I think he was in the audience.
Well, okay.
You only get one bite at
Well,
the apple. So even if he's in the audience, that was his one opportunity to have his comments heard.
Yeah, no,
He's not in the
I
audience. I just checked, Michael. He's not in the audience.
Correct. He was in and now he's not in the audience.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mertuzza, let us turn this over to you, although I'm not really sure. Not really sure what we're asking you to do. I don't think we're asking you a point by point necessarily to try to give us a sense for the author obviously flawed.
Mayor Brownrigg, your internet is giving you a weird voice tuning problem. So perhaps I could just ask Syed to talk about what we've done on this project and what our process is and things like that.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Syed, if you could turn your volume up a little bit, we can barely hear you.
Okay, let me just see if can you hear me better now?
Not really.
Okay.
Do you need to switch to a different audio?
I am actually on the computer direct. I don't have anything else. It's all direct. Must be something else.
Can you just turn it up as far as it'll go?
Yep, that's what I have. It's 100%. So can everybody else hear me properly?
It's just really quiet. You're not as bad as our mayor was when we couldn't understand him at all, but
let me see if I can try to get on to my phone.
call in.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
All right, we'll just take a momentary pause here.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Let's see. Council meeting 21st.
just while we wait for Director Martusa to rejoin, is taking myself off video, does that help my audio at all?
It does quite a bit.
Okay, then I apologize, but I'm going to stay off video.
I somehow let me just see if I can. I have, Jesus. Lisa, I'm having trouble signing with the phone. Let me just disconnect and come back again.
Okay.
For our last Zoom meeting, we were having all sorts of technical difficulties.
I know. I should have probably said that at the beginning, that the next one will be in person, but oh well.
Right.
Can we turn on the heat now?
We
Nice.
probably need to.
All right, he's back.
Can,
Director Martusa, is that better?
can you hear me better this time? No?
Pretty much the same, but why don't you just enunciate and project as best you can so we can keep the meeting going?
First and foremost, I appreciate the comments from Mr. Velasco regarding the process and regarding some of the concerns that he had presented in the meeting. Some of these concerns have been brought before by Mr. Velasco to staff. Staff has gone through many of these, and I'm very confident to say that many of these concerns, staff don't find them to be a problem. The staff has looked at the codes, the vehicle code and design standards. Staff feels they're safe. This is one of the safest bike route that will be done in Burlingame. This will be the first installment of the separated two-way bike route along California Drive. The other pieces will come along in the future. But with regards to the process, the city council staff had gone through an extensive process in 2021 that involved public, that involved businesses, involving Traffic Safety Commission, the BPAC, and as well as the city council. Many of those comments were taken into consideration, and the project that is before you is a project that was approved by city council. And I know that people in the community have different ideas about having bike lanes in different places, but this is what you have is a consensus, that's a majority consensus, and staff has reviewed all the issues that was brought up by Mr. Manito, and I feel very confident. And we even had a outside consultant take a look at the concerns, and we feel that it is safer bike route. And when we have Broadway grade separation train station that will be built where the bike route portion of the bike route is located, there will be no conflict of buses, turning moments and traffic moments. And also when other pieces of the project will come along, such as the dedicated bike route north of California, north of Broadway and south of Oak Grove, that will all be a one dedicated contiguous bike route, keeping bicyclists separated from the motorists. So that's, I'd be happy to go into the details, but there are too many details that were mentioned in that email sent by Mr. Velasco. What I would say to you is that I will continue to look into opportunities if there's any concern brought up, to look into what we can do to address concerns. But by and large, I feel very confident. Staff feels confident. This is a great project.
Thank you, Director Martusa. Are there any questions of Mr. Martusa? All right, seeing none. Oh, Vice Mayor Colson.
So I just want to ask Director Matuza, and I appreciate that the public leans in and asks questions and things, but is this sort of a standard situation that you end up in with this particular constituent, that they're often critical of all of our projects?
Ms. Vice Mayor, thank you for that comment. I would like to respond that, and I appreciate community's feedback, suggestions, ideas. Staff always are open to the ideas and to see what we can do better. But with Mr. Velasco, it's always a challenge, and somehow we always have, I would say, failed to satisfy him on any of the concerns he brings forward. It's very hard to satisfy Mr. Velasco. So we try our best, but again, I don't know how to make him happy about what we do here in Burlingame.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor Brownrigg and Director Matuza. One of the comments that I think I heard from the reading of the email was that this did not go through Traffic and Planning and Safety Commission. Can you comment on that?
Thank you, Councilmember Stevenson. It did go through the process multiple times. First, when the project was developed in the earlier stages as a part of the city's bike pedestrian master plan, and then in that plan, preliminary concepts were identified. And then subsequently, when the city received the grant from the Transportation, Cemetery County Transportation Authority, staff initiated a detailed design. As part of the project, both Traffic Safety Commission, as well as the members of the community provided feedback. It did go through the proper channel. It also went through the city council to show city council options that were made available to the Traffic Safety Commission. So that comment by Mr. Velasco was not accurate.
Actually, on that point, could I just do a follow-up? Is the allegation, in a sense, is the last time the public had a look at this, it was a lot different. So are you saying, Director Matuza, that this version is basically what the Teaspoon Commission and the public saw whenever they saw it? I mean, it might have been 6 months ago or 9 months ago, but this is the same project. Nothing materially has changed.
Mr. Mayor, when we bring the project concepts and I design concepts to council and to the Traffic Safety Commission, we don't go into the construction plan details. This is the same plan that was, the option was option B that was presented to Traffic Safety Commission, including option A, but the option B was the one that was preferred, that was selected by City Council. And so this is the project that you have before, the same project. The project, today, this project involves resurfacing, complete resurfacing the street, some island works, concrete work, storm drain work, all the work that was required as part of that project infrastructure upgrade is constructed. The bike lanes that were shown as part of that effort back then, when you saw before in 2021 and earlier, is the same bike lane. It's on the east side of the roadway. It still is on the east side of the roadway. There are a lot more details developed, such as the crossings, the signals, striping details. All those more details have been provided to the same plan. It's a constructible plan for the contractor to be able to make it happen.
Thank you for that, Director Matuza. Councilmember Beach.
I just want to thank staff for that clarification and also spotlight how important and great it's going to be to have the roadway resurfaced properly. It's long overdue. Has a lot of repairs that will make it so much safer for everybody riding on that road, and really do appreciate the due diligence to make sure we've had lots of eyes on it from consulting firms to make sure that it adheres to vehicle codes and design standards, and appreciate you just pointing out that tonight, Mr. Matuza. Thanks for your work.
All right, well, not seeing any other comments, I would welcome a motion to approve this item.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve item. Megan, can you tell me what number that is
8D.
again, please? 8D, that's right. 8D, thank you.
And I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes. So the motion passes 5-0. And I do think, I think it was helpful, but also a good reminder that this is the program that was reviewed at length. Anyway, that will take us on to, now I'm looking at the actual calendar. So that takes us into public hearings, of which we have none. And then we get into staff reports and communications, and that now takes us to our annual sustainability report. So, Madam City Manager, I'll let you take this away.
I'm gonna just send it right over to Sigal Michael, our Sustainability Program Manager, to give this report.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And do you guys see it, my presentation? Is it in presentation mode also?
It's not in presentation mode, but we can see it very well.
Okay, hold on. Let me just try one more. And then. Okay, that works, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for having me here tonight to speak about sustainability. I look forward to these meetings because it's a great opportunity for me to get input on the city's direction in sustainability. So I will go ahead and start. So you'll see here that I was inspired by the goal setting session, and I'm going to be presenting the ideas and the topic areas with a major achievement from 2022 and a big idea and small idea. And I'd love to, do you guys still see my screen? Did I run? Okay, I'd love to get your feedback as I go through, and it's up to you, Mayor. I don't know if we want to discuss item by item or just keep discussion points towards the end, but that's sort of the way I go ahead.
I would say this on format, which is if people have questions of fact or about one of your slides, then let's address it then.
Okay.
But we'll save comments and conversation for the end.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to first talk about energy. Our big 2022 achievement was updating our building reach code, which means that all future new construction in Burlingame needs to be 100% electric, which aligns us with state goals for carbon neutrality and overall regional goals to electrify buildings. So looking into next year and the future, one big idea that we're thinking about is that I wanted to sort of test the waters with is existing buildings. That's our next challenge, is how do we start electrifying existing buildings? So one policy that's making its way through some other cities is that burnout, which means that when a household needs to replace a water boiler or a heater that runs on gas, they would be required to do so with an electric option, a heat pump to replace. So that's one option for a policy to consider in the future. Whereas a smaller idea, and this idea actually came from our building staff, they saw it as a low-hanging fruit, that when residents do a kitchen or laundry renovation, a small-scale renovation that wouldn't trigger our REACH codes, and if they're just swapping out a gas stove for their gas stove or a gas dryer for their gas dryer, that at that point they would still be required to install an electric outlet to just start future-proofing their household for the future. So this would be, if we wanted to do this, it would be an amendment under our building REACH code, and PCE is prepared to help us through it, and other cities have explored with this as well. And then the other small idea, which it won't be small in impact, but one that small is in that it's doable as of now, is to start really ramping up our support to residents about the rebate programs and state and regional resources available to electrify homes. We know the Switch is on. A state program has great resources. I'm going to ramp up our website, our e-news, our next door posts, and just start really offering more examples for our households to really know what it means to apply for a rebate and how to get those, and step-by-step guidance so to make it more attractive. So I can move on, or if anybody wants to comment on any of these ideas, I'd love to hear if you have feedback or direction about these.
Can I suggest,
Yeah.
Director Michael, if we could maybe go through
Sure.
the slides in terms of, and then we can come back and tick over our, the conversations. Otherwise, I'm a little worried maybe we get bogged down on slide one and then it takes.
Okay.
No,
Sounds good.
let's
Thank you, Mayor.
let's go through the presentation and then come back and make sure we cover each slide.
Sounds good. Thank you for that guidance. So the next topic area is transportation. In 2022, we signed a contract to have a multi-jurisdictional electric bike sharing program with the city of Millbrae and to be operated by SPIN. We had those contracts signed. SPIN is working on it, and I hope in the next 6 weeks or so, we'll see those SPIN bicycles on our streets as an excellent option for last mile transportation alternative for people to use for commuting and just getting around the city in a way other than a vehicle. A big idea that I'm presenting here is about EV charging infrastructure. So the way we've been doing it to date, even though the city does have an EV action plan that we've been using as guidance, but the way we've been installing EV charging stations to date in our facilities is when an opportunity arises, when work is being done at that parking site or a grant opportunity opens up, we sort of scramble and see what we can do at that location. What I'm suggesting here, and I've been in talks with our public works director about this, who brought this idea to me, is to do a master plan for city facilities, to understand from the get-go where are best sites, where is the power capacity, and where are the best sites for fast EV chargers or level 2 chargers, and that we can then direct and have programs ready and direct budgets for those projects, rather than waiting for them to come to us, to just be more proactive and have those projects ready for budgeting and opportunities. Another big idea that I have here is, I put it under transportation because it has to do with engines, but we every year get comments about leaf blowers and lawn gas equipment. So to think about limiting the usage of gas-powered lawn equipment. The small ideas here is, this is a long-running project for me that is in the works, but has hit quite a few obstacles, but I haven't given up yet, is to install fast EV charging stations at the main library. We do have a grant to do so. We've just had some hiccups along the way, but hopefully it will happen in the next year. And then another small idea, which we will be doing this year, is to just at least update our leaf blower ordinance. Right now, that ordinance requires us to check the decibels, or for public works staff to check the decibels of lawn equipment, and we just don't have the capacity to do that. So we want to update that so that it's relevant to today.
So one question of fact
Sure.
here, the limit gas landscaping is if you do that, then you don't need to do the update leaf blower ordinance. Would that be right?
Not necessarily. The leaf blower ordinance is really about what days it's being used on.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that it'll probably still be updated and probably just take out the decibels portion of it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. My next slide about EV infrastructure, I like to just show, how we've been doing and increasing demand for power in our city. So over here, looking at 2020 up to 2022, total public EV stations has grown to 44 in our city. And our goal for 2030 is to have 100. For zero emission vehicle registrations, which we have less control over, but can support, our goal is 5,000 in our city. And in 2022, we've had 5,000, and this is cumulative, all of these registrations for zero emission vehicles. So we've surpassed that goal already. And for our EVs, we wanted to get 10% of EVs in our city fleet, which would be 11, and we're at 6. And then just to show you the charging at each station, in Broadway downtown, you'll see there's been a huge jump in those fast chargers usage. I think that mostly has to do with the fact that they were past COVID and they all have Tesla adapters that Teslas can use them now as well. I didn't include the numbers, but Tesla is by far the most popular registered vehicle in our area. Total charging in Caltrain and City Hall together with ChargePoint is over 8,000 sessions this past year.
Oh.
And then in the Highland Garage, just in those 6 months that it's been open, we're at about 2,500 sessions. Next, I have water. Our big goal of last year was to get a Lawn Be Gone program running. I've wanted this for a long time, and it's been really exciting to see it happen. We have 2 projects that have already been completed, and we're going to start getting their $500 rebate. I'll be highlighting those in our e-news and on our website, and interviewing them for lessons learned and just to get people excited about it. And we have quite a handful of other projects in the pipeline. The big idea is one that I took from the goal session setting for water reclamation at the wastewater treatment plant. That's by far the largest impact of what we can do for water conservation. And then a small idea is when we think about new construction, at that point, maybe looking at gray water and rain barrels and how to integrate it at that point rather than later on is something to think about. For waste, our last year's achievement was SB 1383 is now in effect. That means all businesses need and multifamily buildings need to compost. Ecology and Rethink Waste have been working hard on getting those numbers. We're not at 100% compliance yet, but we're working toward it. But it's a big effort. And our disposable foodware ordinance went into effect, which will also be a phase in. But the idea is that you'll start going to get your takeout from Burlingame, and you'll notice that the containers should be fiber-based compostable containers. But it's a slow phase-in program as well. A big idea here is to consider, since there is so much large home renovations in Burlingame, is a deconstruction policy. What that means is let's say you're going to demolish your home, rather than having a company come in and quickly demolish, that instead you have a deconstruction company come in, see what can be reused. This is different than sending the demolished items to be recycled. This is more about reusing your appliances, your windows, your doors, any scrap wood, and so on. And the benefit of this is it adds maybe 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer time to a construction project, but it can offer the homeowner a huge tax rebate. So usually owners will break even going this route versus just demolishing their homes. And then a small idea to support our composting programs is to explore installing public composting bins in parks and downtown areas. There's definitely problematic because contamination is still a huge problem, but it's just it just keeps the train going, getting people used to seeing composting and how to do it properly. I'm just going to zip through our ongoing program. So you see a lot's happening in Burlingame. We are Peninsula Clean Energy remains our biggest emission reduction measure that we've taken, just being able to electrify our power source. SunShares is our bulk purchasing solar discount program. This year, I made a bigger effort in outreach and it paid off. We had 30 people sign up for a free audit. And I'm not sure I don't know yet what the last word is on how many contracts that actually resulted in, but it wasn't just for solar, it was also connected to battery storage that you could for bulk purchasing. Rebates is not what a compilation of what we offer through our water conservation programs and coupling that with PCE and other regional programs. We have our induction cooktop, which is continually being used and a great resource for residents curious about what induction is all about. And plastic bag recycling, I had to include a picture of it because unfortunately it's in such high demand that it tends to get a little messy. But I think I don't know, for some reason I found this picture to sort of be an analogy of there's a lot more to do and we're getting through it. But you know, Brad at the library also has quite a bit of plastic bag deposits over there too that he has been welcoming as its own statement, but we're going to need to think of a better way to meet people's demand for plastic film recycling. And then just overall outreach is ongoing, and you know, it's here as the last point, but honestly, it's one of the biggest challenges, getting people on board, getting people sold on ideas about electrification and composting. And, you know, outreach is just an ongoing challenge that I'm always looking for ways to improve. And my last slide, which I've included in past presentations, just is a reminder how this all links back to our climate action plan. These are the same measures in past years that we've been reducing, and cumulatively, we're going to keep bringing down those greenhouse gas emissions. And we're waiting from San Mateo County for our newest greenhouse gas inventory that I'll share in the future. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm really excited to have had all these achievements this year and look forward to hearing what you think we should do this following year.
Thank you so much. Really thorough and exciting. And, you know, every one of our residents, or at least most of them, really care about trying to lower their footprint and making sure Burlingame is as green as we can be. I think with that in mind, there's a lot of content here. So I'd invite colleagues either with questions or if there's comments, by all means, make comments. Maybe we don't have to repeat one another, or otherwise this could last a very long time. But if there's something in particular that you think is missing the mark or that you want to applaud and promote, I think now is a good time to do that. And I appreciate, Sigal, that you have already incorporated that robust conversation from our goal setting, where at least 2 council members talked about the importance to them of doing more on water recycling. So great work already incorporating that. With that in mind, Councilmember Ortiz, will you lead us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so Sigal, thank you so much for all of this. This is all really exciting, and it's always refreshing to see how excited you are about all these issues and how you keep us moving in the right direction. Having said that, I have a couple comments on the energy. When we talk about trying to convert existing homes from gas to electric, my feeling is that should be done more with carrots than with sticks. And so I would encourage more rebates and other sorts of things to encourage people to do it on their own versus passing laws that require them to do it. So that's just my thought on that. On the EV infrastructure, I really am so happy to see that the utilization is going up, because the one thing that I always think about building more EV stations EV charging stations, and just to see them idle, it just drives me kind of nuts. But so this is really great to see, especially the one on Chula Vista. That's a big jump. So I was really happy to see that. Also, I'm really intrigued by your idea about water with doing the rain barrels at the time of the construction, at the beginning of that. I think that's brilliant. I think that we should pursue that a lot. So I'll leave the rest for my colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, Sigal, again. Great presentation.
Thank you, Councilmember Ortiz. Who'd like to go next? Councilmember Beach.
Oh, thanks. A lot of similar ideas. Try not to repeat, but I will just tack on to Councilmember Ortiz as far as, I really like the idea in this transitional phase of trying to encourage voluntary, as we talked about during the goal session, electrification, and we really got to get a proof of concept that it's doable and achievable, and learn from people who are doing these rebates and using these rebates and experiencing what it's like to electrify their homes, document it, lessons learned, how expensive is it really, how many panels have to be upgraded. So I think using this time to really do what Sigal mentioned, is getting the word out and about all these rebates and supporting energy audits, and really telling and documenting the stories, and have people tell their stories through our social media channels, could really be an education for the community as well. I do love the idea of the EV charging master plan. I think that's a high impact way we can plan for charging in our city, which we have to get there. So I think that's an exciting thing. I love the water reclamation at the wastewater treatment plant. And really, whatever we can do. I had a friend that just did a major gray water renovation in their home and their garden, and that's a complicated process too. So really get it, and it can be very expensive. So getting information out there. I don't know if there's other incentives we can do for people to voluntarily do it, or even if we have to put some resources. I'm interested in that, and I'm intrigued. I know nothing about it, but a deconstruction policy. I think that's really interesting. We'd have to learn more about it, but I think understanding what that might mean and how costly and all those pros and cons, I think that would be an interesting thing to understand, just how we can reuse during demolition. I'd like to learn more. Thank you.
I will pass the baton in a second to Vice Mayor Coulson, but I'll just say on that, the amount of construction debris, and this is just from serving on SBWMA, the amount of construction debris that goes effectively to landfill is really shocking. So there's a lot of good reasons to try to encourage people to recycle before it all gets pitched. Vice Mayor Coulson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sigal, as always, just a terrific presentation. And what I really like about it is that through our climate action plan, we have set very lofty goals as a city. And what you're doing today is providing us quantifiable data to substantiate what is working and how we can leverage what we're already doing. So I really appreciate that. And I thank you for that. A lot of these conversations can be very pie in the sky, very aspirational, and it's really important, I think, to bring it down to facts and data, and you've done that. The EV charging stations being a perfect example of where we've really made some significant progress. I also, just looking at these, I agree with what everybody has sort of already put forth. Of course, I like the recycled water project. I think that we will continue to see sustained droughts, and water recapture, water recycling, and water management on city property and on homes is going to continue to be really important, especially as we add more density and more housing and more people and businesses to our community. The deconstruction is great as well. I think a lot of homes do that. I know I've done it during my renovations, and it's really easy and it works well, and you actually get paid for it. I also agree with Councilman Ortiz that more incentives and fewer mandates are probably really important. But I also want to point out that if you haven't attended a resource management and climate protection meeting, I actually chair that committee for CCAG. the Bay Area Air Quality Control Board and the district has basically come out and started to set some new standards that are going to be overlaid onto cities. I believe I sent them to you, Sigal, for review. And so what I would like to see is take the standards that they're setting that are going to be required by cities, because it's kind of a top-down mandate, and then work to figure out programs that we can put in place to incentivize people to get to those deadlines, because they're coming up quickly, like 25, 26, they're not 2030, so that we can educate people, get incentives in place. PCE is offering a lot, so figuring out how to bring those in, and then get that burnout ordinance that the state is going to mandate in place, and we can see coming, not jump the gun on that, but take a look at that and then figure out real actionable steps that we can set in place to help our residents meet those goals, not in a punitive way, but in an informative, educational way, and a way that brings them along and explains and helps them understand where they're going to need to be in 3 years. I also think that something that's not on here, but that we should make a commitment to as a council. We have Councilman Ortiz and I have a project that we're working on, which is a new city hall down the road. And I think we should make a commitment as a council that all new buildings we build will be net zero energy, and that when we take we will set the standard on all this, and we'll do it and promise that we will do it first at the city. And I think we as a council can make that commitment pretty easily and pretty clearly as these new projects get in the pipeline. So kind of with that, I'm just really excited, and I think all of us seem really cohesive about how to progress forward. That makes me happy. Please join me at a PCE meeting someday, or please join me at an RCMP meeting, research RMCP if you can. I can give you the dates and the times. We'd love to have you anytime.
Thank you for those comments, Madam Vice Mayor. Councilmember Stevenson, do you want to weigh in?
I think the focus on education is important, and I think the city could take steps to, in the theme of a carrot more than is how do you award families that have made the adoption? A lot of what I heard in some of the meetings I attended were very, very practical things, like I cook on gas and I just don't feel comfortable cooking on something other than gas. And so if there are like awards that are acknowledging people that have made that conversion, and people begin to see that adoption across their neighbors, that's just as powerful as, any type of potential targeted, reach code that people may not be able to digest into their own lives, so to speak. So that's just one area. I am very concerned about groundwater levels. I'm not sure we're tracking aquifers and groundwater levels. It's a big issue at the state. I think we should add that visibility into our water and as reasons for some of the reclamation. To be able to track that, because most of our water does not get reabsorbed as much as it did historically, and that's going to be problematic. So other than that, I echo all the other comments. I think this is great. I do have some comments about the bike program that I think I mentioned before in another context. That I think other cities have tried before, and I'm just a little concerned that our BART program is kind of adopting the same approaches. So just a caution to be looking at how the policy is important, because Santa Cruz just adopted a program with Trek that is essentially requiring you to replace your bike at a charging vehicle station or a charging station. You cannot leave it out on the curb. You can't leave it at the place. And if you fail to do that, there's a huge fine. And they've kind of taken the opposite side of the approach that Lime Bike and others historically have done. So I'm curious, I'm not condemning or complaining about our program because I think it's fantastic. I have a concern about that it's not the sustainability is got to be built into the policy. So I'll leave it at that.
Appreciate those comments. And, it's probably worth Sigal having a deeper dive on the bike program when you think that, you've got some data and visibility on how it's working. So we can do that later in the year whenever you think that's relevant. I won't repeat except to underscore and offer a comment. So I basically agree with everybody. I love the focus on water. I'll just say that, and I think you'll see that flowing out of the goal setting too. So again, you're already ahead of the curve. The one thing I will pile on is it is thousands of dollars to rehabilitate to rehab a home for electric versus gas. So it's one thing when somebody's remodeling or tearing something down and rebuilding. I have zero problem with saying there's a better way to build it. But I don't think we do our residents and frankly the cause of sustainability a lot of benefit by implying that somebody on a fixed income, if their heater breaks, might have to look at thousands and thousands of dollars of rehab. And I don't think that's what we are talking about doing, but it is absolutely what's out on the social media. And I don't think we help ourselves particularly by encouraging that that's possible. And then everybody has to, storm the battlements and stuff. So I take Vice Mayor Colson's point very much to heart. Like if they're coming down the pike, we should help people see them coming, but I'd rather underscore that that's a state mandate and not make it feel like a Burlingame mandate. Okay, so I think we all pretty much said that. I just felt a need to say it again, I guess. So, and then all your other ideas I love. The one thing I might add is that with respect to on your waste slide, I forget exactly how you worded it, but one thing that we can do across departments is try to start doing our design of multifamily housing so that it is easier to get to garbage and particularly compost. A lot of the old buildings don't have enough room and they haven't figured out where they're supposed to go. And this is going to become a real nightmare, especially for the older buildings when this mandate kicks in and every building has to have compost and do compost. So one thing we can do future-proof is make sure we think harder about where garbage gets picked up in the new buildings. So that's just a little bit of a PS maybe to that slide. Otherwise, a wonderful survey and a reminder, I think, why we're all so pleased that we created a sustainability director, because that is a lot of work. And yes, applause from council members. Thank you, Sigal, for making us credible in this and not just aspirational. Are there any, I should open it to the public. There you go. I finally got there, didn't I, Madam City Clerk? Are there any comments in the public?
There are, let's see, I see a hand up and I do have an email as well. So we'll let Gordon, if you'd like to unmute yourself. Gordon, you can go ahead.
Mr. Foster, are you there?
Okay, I'm gonna raise your hand if you'd like to talk again, Mr. Foster. I'm gonna go on to the email I received. So we got an email from Doug Bojack. He says, "Good evening, council members. Thank you for receiving the annual report on the city's sustainability progress. And thank you to staff for preparing the report. I want to highlight one thing that appears to be missing from the report: the urgent need to increase trips made by walking and bicycling through smart planning decisions. thoughtful community engagement, and integrated infrastructure investments. As the Climate Action Plan acknowledges, changing people's behavior to drive less is one of Burlingame's trickiest challenges in reducing GHG emissions. But reducing vehicle miles traveled should be a vital goal, given that more than half of our community's emissions come from transportation. More than a fifth of the Climate Action Plan's 2030 GHG reduction measures, from mixed-use development and complete street investments to the upcoming bicycle share program, rely on shifting transportation modes away from cars. With the significant changes in Burlingame's built environment that we've seen in the next decade, now is the time to make sure that the thousands of new residents and employees traveling around Burlingame will have safe and enjoyable ways to do so outside of their car.
Excellent comment. Sounds like he'd like to join the shuttle working group.
Don't see anyone raising their hand again from the public, so I think we can close public comment.
All right, going once, going twice, Mr. Foster. No? Okay. Vice Mayor Coulson.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up one other thing that I would really appreciate everybody's help on this, and that's advocacy around battery storage and more information around battery storage, because one of the big issues with completely electrifying a house is.
Interrupt you for a second. You're talking about like solar battery storage, not.
Yeah. Solar battery and backup, right? And the reason I say it is because I think it's like getting an EV. People have range anxiety, and people also have, rightly so. And it's interesting because I talked to Kate Comfort at HIP Housing, and she told me this was one of the biggest issues for them as an affordable housing provider was complete electrification, because without battery backup and solar panels installed on their facilities, it becomes a real troubling problem. Whereas some people might be able to go to their gym and take a shower, or they can afford to go to a restaurant and pick up food or something. A lot of people can't. And so when their electricity goes out, they're really in a complete island of vulnerability. So Sigal, it's again, this is a bigger issue than us, but I think as we're working with Educate the Public, that's a conversation we can fit, and advocacy around that is really important.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments on our sustainability chapter before we close it? Well, again, Sigal, thank you so much for leading us through that and reminding us what you've done, we've done collectively, and the work that we have in front of us, which it sounds like we're probably going to pile some more on. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
That closes out our staff reports. It takes us to council committee and activities reports. Are there any updates that colleagues would like to make to the group? I see none. And therefore, that takes us to future agenda items. Are there any matters that council members would like to suggest for future work? City manager breathes.
I just have a question about something we're working on and quick, and that's Lisa and Margaret and Brad. I think we were all working on the age-friendly cities, the redocumentation of that. There's a report that has to go out. And all I just want to say is if we need some help on that, or we need to put that back up onto the forefront, I know I was on that team to make sure we get that done in a timely fashion. Let me know. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. We will let you know.
Thank you for that reminder. Any other items for consideration in the future? Councilmember Stevenson.
This is going to sound very self-serving, but the policy right now for PC equipment or communication devices obviously extends across the entire staff of the different departments, and that makes a lot of sense. But my understanding is there's no policy around our devices being used as council members, and yet we have very, very sensitive interactions, which I'm just cognizant of the appropriate IT standards, the right firewalls, all those types of things. I'm assuming that we all have that on our own devices, but at the same time, curious about the policy there. So just raising it as something that if we have an IT standard that we're holding to all of our departments, why does not extend to city council members?
And so on that, I might suggest that you chat with the city manager and maybe the city attorney about a security policy, and perhaps it is worthy of a broader briefing. Councilmember Ortiz, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, and there was many years ago, and I think it was the prior city attorney who brought it up, and there was a lot of discussion about using our personal devices for council activities, and how that would, it might put us in an awkward position if in certain situations. And so the thought was that the city would issue city specific devices to the council members so that we could use those only for council purposes. So, and I forget whatever happened, but that was the talk at one point. I don't know if the city manager, she remembers what happened with that whole initiative, but well, I do think that's an issue, and I think we should bring it up.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in only to say, obviously, we can't keep talking about it at this point. I think what I'd still like the city manager to reflect on is whether this is a city council agenda item that we should all talk about, or exactly how to handle this question of security and personal devices and so forth.
So so Councilmember Stevenson and I did discuss it earlier, and I suggested that he bring it up as a future agenda item because it's really a budget issue. We do not have budget for any city purchase of council member tablets or laptops or phones or whatnot. And so if there is an interest in the city buying those types of items for council members, it's not come up before because you all had your own devices. Councilmember Stevenson has a whole lot of security lockdown on his work issued laptop and work issued phone. And it wasn't a problem until we went through that migration that knocked us all for a loop a week or two ago. And so that created an issue for him getting his city communications. And so we did discuss it. So the question is whether if there's more interest in possibly the city taking on that budget, we need one more person to say, yes, I'm interested in that discussion, and we can broaden that to the item that Councilmember Ortiz raised and kind of make it a combo staff report.
Well, I'll be the second for that. If that's the issue area, that I think that merits a conversation. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm happy to see it agendized.
Okay.
Okay, so that disposes of that. Any other concepts for topics? All right, seeing none, thank you for those ideas and so forth. And we are obviously in acknowledgements. We have various meeting minutes and so forth from the different commissions. That takes us to adjournment. I'm not aware of anybody to close in honor of, but I welcome any comments from colleagues. Okay, well, that's good news not to have to close for somebody. I feel like there was one other thing I was going to share, but I can't remember, so it'll have to wait till next time. Oh, next time it's in person. That's what I was going to share. So we will see each other in person on March 6th, I think. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor.